On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, the trailer 2 window closes in.
If we don't get a trailer in April, we're not getting GTA 6 this year.
GTA 6 map footage gets taken down.
There's something in that map that's forced them to act.
And GTA 6 co-op.
You meet an FBI informant or something, and you realise he's actually like a double agent or something.
It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Hello and welcome to episode 66 of GTA 6 o'clock. That is 3 sixes. The world's most in-depth and best connected GTA 6 show. That's 4 sixes. Episode 66 must be a sign, but a sign for what? Well, we have reached the final week of March and there is still no trailer 2, which puts our previously suggested timeline under some pressure. So let's get into that by saying, hello, I am James JJ Jarvis, and here to defend our prediction is Dan D.D. Dawkins. Hello, Dan.
Come and get your kicks on episode 66, as nobody will ever say again.
We have just said once, and that will be the only time. Yeah. So, Dan, we have said that trailer 2 could be coming in late March to early April, which would give Rockstar the 7 to 8 month marketing window we think they need. Are we still confident about this prediction?
Yeah, big question.
Big question right up the top of the show.
Yeah, I think... I don't know. I'm no more or less confident than I was last week. I think obviously as every week ticks by, it's less probable.
Yeah.
To reverse engineer that statement, the reason we have been saying late March, early April is essentially because, like we've said before, Rockstar are running out of road, and to hit what is their usual 6-month marketing sort of, the accelerated 6-month marketing campaign timeline leading up to launch, they have to do that soon. Given that April is the 4th month, let's say they're looking to launch in October, which is the 10th month. That's the 6 month, but 6-7 month gap, depending where you place the dates, right?
Yeah. So
there is a possibility this goes out to late April, May. But I think beyond that it's like, wow, it's done. It's done. Now, and the reason I would say April is partly because of that initial sentiment, and also because, as we've said on the show, we receive a lot of different information from different people. Of all of the things we've received, probably the most credible was pointing towards April. Now, it's also possible that information was true at the time and changed, or maybe never true, because that's the way these information things work, right? But I feel sufficiently confident to say this, Spider Sense says this is about the time for something to happen.
Yeah. And April is next week.
Yes,
as you are listening to this show.
It's next week. And I'd like to talk, and again, we'll probably get into it in a minute. I'd like to talk a little bit about, I had a thesis of, did the fact that Rockstar's financial year begins, their new financial year begins on April the 1st, 2025, would that have some impact on their decision to say, for example, let's announce that side of that date or beforehand? Because it's also would relate to things they've done in the past involving pre-ordering and how that revenue gets booked, having a very potentially big impact on their financials. So I can either dive into that now, or we can talk a bit more around the topic.
Yeah, and I guess from a company level, it's a good thing for them to talk about if they did do that, to say, look how we started our financial year. We generated even more hype for the biggest game ever, rather than, you could flip that either way. You could say we ended the year with this huge announcement and did it, or we kicked off the year with this thing. So, we can just jump into it. You've sort of already answered this question, but do you think it makes a difference to them then? Or would they hold it back for that specifically?
So what part of me thought was, let's say they'd open pre-orders today, right? And it's this side of April, so it's actually technically in the previous financial year. And let's say 1 million people pre-ordered, which is a load of revenue, right? And a load of revenue, and it would be more than 1 million, by the way. I'm just pulling figures out of the air. It would be an amount of revenue that, were it to be recognized in the accounts, would be significant and probably would have been already declared. But the way pre-order revenue works is that when you book it, it's known as what's deferred revenue. in accounting principles, which means that you don't actually realize that revenue until it's delivered. So actually, even if they did set pre-orders live now in March, it wouldn't make a difference. They only really recognize that revenue in accounting when the game actually releases, which at this point in time we believe to be, fall 2025, right? So it wouldn't really matter whether they drop trailer 2 now or later, and that's also contingent on them doing what they did for GTA 5, which is, so to take us way back in time, going back to, and this is now November the 5th, 2012, right? On that date, and this is actually, at this point in time, we all believed that GTA 5 was going to launch in spring 2013.
Yes.
Now, it actually ended up releasing in September 2013. But at that point in time, to go back to November the 5th, 2012, on that date, they announced basically 2 things. One was GTA 5 is now officially available for pre-order. So at that point, they were saying that, I guess, it depends where you define spring, right? They were announcing that 5 to 6 months before the game they then thought was going to come out.
Yeah.
And then they also, on that date, November the 5th, said GTA 5 Trailer 2 is coming next week, November the 14th. So we had 9 days notice of that. Now, I say all of that for if history were to repeat and Trailer 2 were to come with a
Pre-order.
A pre-order,
Yeah.
and also to be pre-announced, and let's say it was done, I mean, there's a load of stuff to talk about where it's done what would be yesterday as you listen to this, in which case this is an entirely moot conversation. But let's say it was this week, you'd still be looking at like then first, second week of April for the trailer, and pre-orders would be live now, like imminently, right? That's all possible, but that shows you that, I guess, the frame of the timelines as they did it previously, and also the gap between pre-orders opening and when they thought the game was coming out, which I would say is somewhere between 5 to 6 months, which feels like about standard.
Yeah.
Like, Death Stranding's just done a pre-order. That was sort of like, March to June, maybe that's tighter. But again, it's the difference between March the 1st and June the 30th becomes almost like 4 months. So that sort of that ramp up for pre-orders feels about right to me. And again, they're running out of road if it is hitting in fall 2025. So I don't know what you think. Do you think they will launch pre-orders with trailer 2?
That is the to Rockstar, $200 million question.
Yeah.
And I think it very much depends on when trailer 2 drops. Like, GTA 5 had the Michael Franklin Trevor set of trailers, came out in April, which was about 5 months before release. But at that point, they had already released trailer 2.
Yes.
And given us a load of screenshots and given us a Christmas present with further screenshots. Like, it was at a different stage of its campaign. So I think when people think about and start talking about, oh, well, GTA 6 could be different because it could be a tighter campaign that actually only lasts 5 months, 4 or 5 months, and it just ramps up immediately, it goes big at the end. I think even then, we're behind on where you need to be if we're still going for fall. So I think if it was reasonably soon, as we've predicted, there's a possibility it would open with pre-orders. And I think if it does, it would give me more confidence that game is coming in fall. If we get trailer 2 and it's just still says fall and there's no pre-orders, I don't know. I think one of the questions I wrote down in our notes is, if you're Rockstar at this stage, and internally they may or may not know if a delay is happening or not, but do you release trailer 2 within the next few months, this month being March, hopefully in April, and then announce the delay later on? Or do you do a delay announcement now-ish and ease the pressure a little bit, and then drop trailer 2 once the marketing campaign actually kicks off a bit further down the line. So like, because they've done it both ways before, right? With Red Dead 2, they delayed that game before trailer 2 in May, just before an investor call. And then GTA 5, they delayed it after trailer 2 in January, as you just said. So I think we're getting to the stage. Obviously, the next Take-Two investor call is predicted to be May 15th. It's definitely in May.
Yeah.
15th is the prediction. At that point, I think they have to have done, they're either going to do, the trailer comes out before that date, or they're going to do a delay announcement before that date, because that is late and you can't be doing anything after mid-May and pretending that everything is still on track if it isn't.
Yeah, I think in terms of an investor conversation, they can't be on that call saying everything's fine if actually they know it's not, because it's so close to the release then. It's too impactful. So I think you're right. I think they've got to sit on the potty, or whatever the correct phrase is. Like, they've got to commit by then. So like, if there is going to be a delay, you would think it would be out in the open before that earnings call. And then whether it's done with the soothing balm of a trailer 2 to distract us, or whatever it is.
I mean, the ones that they've done previously, your soothing balm is screenshots. It's not even really
that
a
wouldn't
trailer.
be that soothing, would it? Really?
I mean, it'd be soothing enough. It'd be better
something.
than nothing.
It'd be something. And I guess at the point, the unknowable, this is the grand question at the center of all this, is with what confidence do they believe the game's actually going to be ready for fall 2025? That's the thing none of us know. People within Rockstar know. We don't know. Even within management of Rockstar, they're probably they're putting constant dialogue with like lead producer and the team going, how are we looking? How are we looking? How are we tracking? How's it going versus previous progress? And there's a really fine tipping point between the producer or whatever it is saying to the board or the money man. I think it will hit with 95% accuracy, 90%, 80%. At what point does it become we can't take that risk? And they'll probably have their own internal calculus on, I don't have confidence in what you're telling me, we've got to delay it. And that will be something within Rockstar. They'll have protocol around that is. And I to go all the way back to GTA 5, like at the point that they announced pre-orders and were saying spring, it must be the case they had clear confidence they were going to hit spring, because you wouldn't start pre-orders unless you genuinely believed. But clearly, between the time of announcing pre-orders, like November the 5th, and announcing the delay Jan 31st, that's only 2-3 months.
Yeah, Christmas happened.
Yeah,
People got
Christmas
tired.
happened. They went, oh God, things haven't gone, for whatever reason, things have not gone as well as we thought, and we just got to call it. So that's again a great unknowable with this situation. I still assert, if they are hitting fall 2025, as they've stated, as they've reiterated in 2 earnings calls, and I know it's Strauss Zelnick's job to portray confidence, but like, he's been quite unequivocal in terms of saying it's still on track. It's still on track, and it's on track until it isn't.
Yeah, until a few months when it comes off the track.
But if we take him at his word, and let's also look at the other publishers in the world who are taking him at his word, because they all moved their games out of the way. So the industry believes him, or they can't afford not to believe him because it's too bold to go, he's probably lying, it'll get delayed. Like, no one believes that case to be true either, or they'd be putting games back in October, November, which they're absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's why we're getting Death Stranding in June and what have you, right? Because no one can take the risk, and they think there's sufficient probability that it will launch when it says it will. So, and then if that's true, it's go time soon, right? It's got to be. It has to be. Like, I think you're right. I think it could go as late as maybe, let's say the earnings call is May 15th. It might go as late as like late April, early May. But they're out of track with them. They're fully out of track. And I think we're at the stage of, now we're on the track. Like, it's the next month is everything. And I know a lot of that is talking around the subject of being imprecise, but like, you just can't predict where they are with the development of the game.
No, and yeah, I I mean, this is the crunch period, isn't it? This is what we've been leading up to for the last 60 or so episodes, I guess. Taking it back to the point, if it was going to be delayed, from pretend you're making this decision.
Yeah.
Trailer 2 is ready, but
Yeah.
we also have to announce the delay at some point. At which way round are you going to do that?
I think you have to announce the delay in a fairly sober and straight way as a press release. And then you either do it at the same time or you wait a week and then you just go, and trailer 2 is coming. What you don't want to do is launch trailer 2, have it say something about the release date coming fall 2025, and then 1 week later say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And also having built even more hype for the game.
I guess the runway would be, if we're, like we've been talking about, trailer could be April.
Yeah.
And then you could announce the delay just before the investor call. So you've had a month of grace and people going, okay, still looks good. And then, oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, you can,
Things have
but that's
changed.
so tight. And I think even the gap from the GTA 5 trailer 2 was November to the end of Jan, which is more like 2 or 3 months. That feels like enough time to go, something has fundamentally changed in our understanding of the game. That the scenario you put forward, which is plausible, but then it would be almost like within the last 4 weeks we've changed our mind.
Yeah.
And then that almost reflects badly on them, I think, to go, what changed in those 4 weeks for us to go from yes, it's coming to no, it isn't. So I'd have thought, I mean, this is also hypothetical, right? I'd have thought if they genuinely were going to delay it, they would just put a fairly sober press release before the earnings call so it can be at least addressed in terms of financial implications on the call, because that's the main thing for them.
Yeah.
And then there will be a trailer 2. I don't know, like it could drop a week after the delay announcement as a kind of good news, eyes on the prize. But whether, and again, the other part of it would be if they announce a delay, do they then recommit to the new date at the same time, which is what you'd want really. Otherwise it creates terrible uncertainty. So they may just go, for example,
Spring.
Yeah, spring 2026.
Another nebulous date.
Yeah, spring 2026. Because if it doesn't hit their Q3, Q4, it's next year, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, let's take the worst possible scenario for us and for fans listening. It's delayed until, let's say, spring 2026, which would be March. Well, it's not even March, is it? Because March is April, June. So if they do delay it, they could go to March 2026, which would still keep it within their financial year.
Yeah.
That would mean that they could make that delay announcement, let's say in May, like we said, before the investor call. Then you sort of enter a similar timeline to the Red Dead 2 marketing timeline without the second delay. Red Dead got delayed twice, obviously, which would put trailer 2 dropping somewhere in like September. I know that's really disappointing.
But that's only disappointing if it happens. Of course.
Which would then be 7 months until a March release. You could then start the thing. What that does mean, as maybe they found with GTA 5, is you're running that lead up to launch. You're running that campaign over a Christmas break, which could be tough. And then if that happens, are we entering a territory of doing all that stuff over Christmas was tough and, the teams had a break or whatever, and now we're looking to push it out again, and you are into the Red Dead, okay, we're getting 2 delays here and we're pushing this out into what would have been a launch in 2025, but now that date is actually in 2026 and it's September, October time.
Yeah, and critically, financial year 2026 rather than 2025.
Which there has been no evidence so far to suggest that is happening.
Absolutely not. But I guess the spectre that lurks over all of it is just like, what state is the game in? This is the $1,000 question. What state is the game in? Like, to add, this is something that was in the newsletter last week, and to add some context, it doesn't add truth, but it adds context to how unknowable this is. So this was from the video game industry memo newsletter produced by a guy called George Osborne. He's like a respected biz journalist in the UK, knows lots of people. Does he know the right people? I don't know, right? But he said, like, I was at GDC, talked about loads of different things. As per usual, GDC was a prime opportunity to overhear plenty of excellent gossip that is both almost certainly true and almost entirely impossible to report on. He said, but I did enjoy hearing 3 separate rumours about GTA 6's release date. And they are, one includes a rapid fire release in early autumn. The other is a drop in time for Christmas. And the other is a possible postponement to next year. And as George signs it off, the more you hear, the less you know, right?
Yeah.
And I said, amen, George. It is. Because, and that maybe that shows nobody effing knows.
No, well, 2 of those dates are basically the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah. And yeah, I suppose like, again, but there's a gap between, early autumn could be as soon as September, October. Christmas is Christmas. That's still a 3-month gap. And then next year's next year. So there's, of those predictions, well, at least 2 are wrong, if not all of them.
Yeah.
So people, even within the industry.
Yeah. I mean, many of those dates we have mentioned on this show before. So if we had spoken to George at GDC, maybe it had a few more things to add to that.
Exactly. And like, you can only go back to what you know to be, has been said and been true. They keep saying fall 2025. And like, there's 2 of those rumors would comply with that, early autumn or Christmas. So, I don't know.
Let's wait and see.
2 of those rumors correspond to what we know to be true at this point in time. Let's put it that way. So, like everything, we can only wait and see. And like where that leaves trailer 2, again, it's all really a function of, are they going to have to announce a delay? And then all the scenarios we just discussed, really, and the way they would approach that. What do you think, though, to put you on the spot? What do you actually think is going to happen, given that no one knows?
Yeah, given that no one. Well, a few months ago, all leading up to the last few weeks, I'm still very much in. It's coming in fall. That camp, like it's got to, right? We've waited this long. It has to. But then, as we get closer and closer to that date, and still having nothing, it's starting to feel less and less likely for me, like, which is disappointing. And it means that we're going to have to do another 30 odd episodes without anything.
My life.
But I just, like we say, like we've kept saying, the traditional timeline that they've stuck to is running out. You would have thought something would have happened by now, but on the flip side, like, it's Rockstar and you never hear anything from them until they're ready, and then it's like, here you go, bang, 2 days, we're going to do the next content drop, prepare yourselves. So like, I'm still holding on to that fact that that's an entirely possible situation that can come. It just feels a less and less likely as we go up in the episode numbers higher and higher.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What I sort of feel at this point is maybe we're going to get a delay announcement quite soon, if I'm being honest with myself.
Look, I'm going to play the optimist and say everything public to this point has been full. They've clearly had confidence around full. Other publishers have acted in a way that they believe it's full. Let's say it's full. That's me being the optimist. I mean, anything could be true, right? And I think every week we go further from now, I probably lose with every week that passes about 10% optimism in the actual release date. So I think no. If we're still saying this by the end of April, I'm about 50% more believing that it's delayed. And I think they're going to have to announce a delay ahead of that earnings call.
Yeah.
Because it's just, and if they miss that earnings call, they're then in the August earnings call, which is almost when the game was due to come out. That's just too much. It's too crazy. And I would have thought it would be a thing they'd want to address in earnings call because it's so financially significant. Yeah. I suppose you could argue maybe it's not if they know they're definitely going to hit this financial year, but it's still such a big talking point that it would be a bit Weasley to sort of do an earnings call. It's all fine, folks. And then like a week later go, by the way, it's delayed. I don't think people would take very well to that in the investment community. So I think if we're going to hear something, it's going to be before that May call in terms of a delay. The most optimistic scenario is, as said, next week or two, we hear something. And like it could be like we had before, pre-orders announced, trailer 2 9 days later.
Yes.
So, a pivotal 2 weeks ahead, I would say.
Please make that happen. If it doesn't happen, personally, I might have to say that if we don't get a trailer in April, we're not getting GTA 6 this year. There you go, Nathan. Clip that out. Put that at the beginning of the episode. Keep everyone excited about
Experienced GTA veteran makes bold prediction about future of GTA.
I look forward to us covering that news next week.
Yes.
Right then, let's move on and talk about the map that we discussed on last week's show, as there have been some developments. In case you missed it last week, we highlighted a map which YouTuber Darkspace had created. Using GTA 5's modding tools, he's built a potentially very accurate map of parts of GTA 6. The video featured recordings of him exploring the map, driving around it, walking around the bits that he had built. What has happened since last week's episode is that Take-Two Interactive has given that video a copyright strike via YouTube, which means it has been taken down. The Darkspace has also removed the download links to the mod off their own back because they believed that if this video is being taken down, it probably isn't going to be very long until they get an email asking them to take that mod down. He's released a video about it, and his statement was that his guess is, and I quote, "The map is probably a little too accurate," which is why he's had a copyright strike against him. Personally, for me, I would say I agree. I think that map probably is too accurate from that point of view. I would also say that it's in the video, he confirms that that video has used data and information from the 2022 leaks. Now, that information was never supposed to be public, which isn't going to help the case of Take-Two being able to say that's not data you should be using. Also, you're using our game in a way that we weren't intending it to be used for. Please remove this video. I don't know if you've had any initial thoughts on that. Like, I think the map was a good representation of Vice City, built obviously in GTA 5. Not anything like it's going to look in GTA 6, but it's an interesting case because there are, I have to be a bit careful because we don't want to draw too much attention to his channel or anything, but there is other content that hasn't been taken down. So it's an interesting play on what the difference is between the two here.
I think with a lot of these things involving the law, the difference is we saw it versus we didn't see it. I think it's partly the content. It's partly did anyone even notice? And I think that's why generally when you do legal training, you've done it, numerous libel law courses. Part of it is these are the conditions that will lead to libel. The other is what's the actual likelihood of that happening. So, for example, don't go talking shit about the one thing I told me is don't go talking shit about Tom Cruise because he's rich and litigious.
Yeah.
There's other people that you might get away with it with. It doesn't make it right or any more legal. It just means it might not get noticed or they might not have the funds to pursue you. So there's lots of things that have happened in the GTA community that probably Rockstar could decide to seize upon, but either they don't know about them or it's not big enough for it to be a problem for them, so they let it go. I think the reality is no one wants to sue anyone because it's messy and annoying, and every time you do it, it sends a signal, positive or negative.
Yeah.
So I think you always would rather just let things sit. But there's something in that map that's forced them to act.
I feel like it's probably because, like I say, it's using data that isn't publicly available, and it's like a 3D recreation in one of their engines of a thing that doesn't exist or people shouldn't be able to see yet. Whereas like the 2D version of that map, which is widely available and is still very good and uses the same data, it's easier to let that go because you have to sort of use your own visualizations and try and map it out in your mind rather than having someone go, I've plotted this into a pretty accurate scaled representation. I'm going to go from one end of it to the other to show you how big it is, etc., is probably too much of an insight into GTA 6 at this stage than they would like people to be getting.
Yes. And I think it's a couple of things to pick apart there. One is that I agree. I think probably fundamentally it's a bit too close to the truth. Is that alone a reason for them to issue a strike down? Maybe not. Or is it something as banal as, but you built it using our tools for which you signed terms of service, so we own that material or the use of it because when you signed up to it, that's what it is. So then they don't really have to, they don't need any more reason than, maybe the map was terrible, but they just thought, no, and we can do that because we own that material. There's all sorts of more banal reasons they could take something down, but I actually agree. I think it is probably really accurate. And there's the person who created the map, like you said, has come out publicly and talked about how it was done. Even on the thread on our channels, what I posted yesterday to say, we talked about this really good map and we put a link to it on the newsletter. There's a little argument began in the comments, and this is another podcast of people saying, what should you be allowed to leak or spoil? What's fair and what isn't? And a conversation about spoilers is the most, one person's spoilers, another person's juicy tidbit or whatever. Right?
Yeah, well, spoilers are different to leaks, though, aren't they? Like, you shouldn't really be allowed to leak anything. Like, that is not anyone's responsibility to be doing any of that stuff. Once the game is out, are you allowed to post the ending of the game? That's a heavily debated topic. And how soon do you wait before you tell everyone, actually, this character dies in the third act?
Oh yeah. And but leaks are spoilers if you read them.
Yes.
And they're also like, they're taking, that's the thing where people do get legal because they want to try and hem that stuff in. The problem is when something's out there, it's out there, isn't it? And then it's almost like it's up to your ability to withstand it or not be on social media or have it. We've all done it, like TV shows you've been watching, you're scrolling through your feed and you suddenly see something and go, oh my God. And every brand and outlet has a different view of what a spoiler is. That's probably something we could talk about in a different day about what we consider things we'll talk about versus won't talk about. I guess James and I haven't explicitly talked about this. I guess my view is what we don't want to do is have a show where even if we were given the script, I wouldn't want to sit here and go, right, we're going to spoil it all for you.
Yeah.
I think that would be probably like no one wants to spoil it. For us, it's the fun of the prediction and the game, but keeping enough mystery for us all to enjoy it. We want to enjoy the game. We're not here to ruin it.
Yeah.
If we were to ruin it, we'd have jumped all the leaks there and probably got struck for it, right, by Rockstar.
Yeah, this probably podcast wouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, if we just gone and splurged all those leaks, like we're out there in the public domain. And so to go back to the thread, I talked about this on the newsletter. Someone had got angry because it's a spoiler. Discuss, it's a separate conversation. But then actually the maker of the map replied to a reply on our thread and said, and there's some interesting language here. He said, pretty much everything in my map was based on the trailer, triangulation of the buildings and the different camera angles. So I think he was basically disagreeing that it was spoilers in the way the other guy said. But then there was some argument about, by pretty much, do you mean it was actually leaks plus the trailer? So, I'd love to speak to the map maker and talk about how we actually did it. But whether this is now more complex because of the takedown, I don't know. But there's clearly, even just using the trailer and using 3D modeling in the way that the GTA 5 mapping community have done before, you're going to get a really geographically accurate sense of what that map is. So it's a spoiler in that it's true, but it's only what they put in the trailer reimagined in a different format that makes it feel spoilery. You can guess the size of some of the map by looking at the trailer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Comparing it with real life locations and going, that is that far away from here. Like,
so Rockstar have spoiled that.
I guess that's
to a degree.
Yeah. Only becomes a spoiler if you take it upon yourself to do that. If you want to know how far away building X is from building B, you can in real life find that out and then make an approximation of what that's going to be in the game. That is on you to do that if you want to do that. And I guess then the argument comes on, if you do that and you put it in front of loads of other people, are you, forcing that thing onto them and going, look, this is, but then it's up to you to click on that stuff. This is a very
I
complicated
know it's
topic.
so interior and dense, and like the map anyway. Whilst the scale and the distance is correct, the actual topography, the density of the cities, the way it all looks is completely unknown.
Oh, yeah.
Because none of us, even in the leaks, that wasn't very clear, a lot of that stuff. So, like, let's say there is a town that's the equivalent of Fort Myers in real life on the West Coast, or like an Orlando style area to the north. We don't know how that looks, and that map doesn't spoil it because it doesn't know.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't
on that
exist.
map.
So we can't. There's nothing to crib from. You could invent it, but it's not a spoiler then because it's not real.
Yeah.
So I'm not too upset about that, and I think it's, for me, I think it's fun. I think it's okay and it's fun to use a bit of like maths and approximation to go, we think this is the scale. And like we already know it's big because Rockstar have said it. So I guess if some people perceive that as a spoiler to go, oh, I didn't think it would be this big, or I wanted to discover how big it was myself. Yeah, sure. Like everyone's got a different tolerance for spoilers. I personally don't feel like that's spoiling my enjoyment of GTA in any way because I don't think the things I want to be a mystery have been spoiled by that. It's so complicated.
Yeah, well, let us know your opinions in the comments about the map and what is or isn't a spoiler in your consideration, and we will probably read a few of them out next week. Well, now, speaking of speculation, let's really get into some regarding GTA 6 co-op and character switching. Now, this is going to be in response to an email that we got from Toby. Hello, Toby. Thanks for sending us an email. You can send us an email, gtavio'clock@gmail.com. Now, Toby says, I'm not going to read all of this out, Toby, but I am going to read most of it. Hi, Dan and James. Would love to get your thoughts on how you think GTA 6 will innovate the way we play as the main protagonists. Switching between 3 characters back in 2013 felt revolutionary for the series. 12 years later, we can assume the same switching mechanic will return and will be vastly improved using today's generation of consoles. But do you think Rockstar would introduce an entirely new way to play to push the boundaries and expectations once again? One idea that comes to mind is co-op story mode, a sort of modern-day split-screen concept. Let's say you're playing the main story on your own, but then you see your friend is online, so you invite them to join you and play as the other character. You're playing as Lucia, your friend is playing as Jason, and you can switch any time still. But now you get to explore the world and continue the story together rather than on your own. Either way, we know Rockstar is incredibly ambitious, and I personally can't wait to see what decisions they've made to redefine what it is to play a GTA game once again. Love the show. I finally caught up after a long drive up and down the length of the country, so thank you for distracting me with some great chats and insights, especially the petrol debate. Please let it be optional.
Yes.
Spoilers, Toby, will not be optional. Will definitely be in the game. No, it might be optional, but it will definitely be in the game.
There's someone who in real life went on a long drive and went, what I don't need is to refuel in my video games.
Probably only refilled once so on that long drive.
Amen, my friend.
But there's quite a lot of things to tackle in here. Let's start off with character switching. Yes, revolutionary in 2013. It is now 2025. Has become sort of a staple in the industry with multiple protagonists in games. Spider-Man 2 is probably the best example of how that works on modern tech when you can switch between Spider-Man or Miles Morales. It's almost seamless in Spider-Man 2 on PS5. It takes about 1 to 2 seconds to load from one character to the next, and it just goes to a black screen.
Can I say I've not played Spider-Man 2? Does it do is it up to the player when they switch character?
Yes. You hold
Got you.
square, I think it is, and you just switch.
Okay.
And those characters are split across the city most of the time. Like you just jump from one area to the other. It always has a cute little GTA style sort of micro cutscene. He'll be drinking a can of pop and then he'll throw it away and carry on.
Yeah,
or he'll
it's like
be,
GTA did that, didn't it?
Or he'll
That's
be
a nice
resting on
thing.
top of a building and then get up and be like, okay.
I only ask because I'm in the middle of playing God of War Ragnarok, where it does character switching, but it's forced upon you.
Yes.
So it's like depending where you are in the game, you play different people.
Yeah, so this is very much like you get the choice, like you did Michael Trevor Franklin, basically. But then if we're talking about the most recent game that has done that, Assassin's Creed Shadows, that has you go into a menu, choose the character, then look at a loading screen, and then you'll become the new character. Or you can choose to fast
Well, it
travel.
does that in 2025.
It does that in 2025, yes.
This is why I don't play many Ubisoft games.
Just for that reason
Well,
specifically.
it's just, well, again, let you share your thoughts on that in the comments. Maybe I'm being naive, but like, I thought you could just do real-time switching, surely.
Well, I think the challenge with Assassins is that then they're basically, because you choose which character you want to play the story as, they're essentially both doing the storyline at the same time. You
Right.
just choose if you're playing as one or the other. So they're not doing different activities in the world like they are in Spider-Man or GTA.
Yeah, they don't exist simultaneously.
No, you just choose
Okay.
which cutscene you want them to appear.
But can you go like, I'll play half the game as this character and then play the rest as the other?
Yes. And they have the same
Fine.
skill tree and the same
Fine.
level
I
up
don't know
thing.
why
So
you
it's,
would do that. But it's classic Ubisoft. I leave that to my own mumblings.
so let's get it back to how we think this will work in GTA 6. I think it'll probably land somewhere in the middle of the two. Yeah, I agree. We can almost guarantee that character switching will be the same in GTA 6 as it will be in 5 in terms of how you activate it. Like you will choose to switch between one character or the other. In GTA 5, you just held, I think, left on the D-pad and then selected your character.
Yeah.
It will be similar in GTA 6 in that I think you will hold a button or press a combination of buttons to switch characters. It will just be faster in GTA 6 than it was in 5.
So it's not dum 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 as it zooms out. It's just because there's more memory and it's faster and it caches quicker. And
it
all
might
that
just
stuff.
be dum dum.
Yeah, you're in.
Instead.
Well, this is an interesting topic, actually. If we think, and I agree, I think like real time switching, or not quite real time, but close, is a thing you'd think they continue. Would they be taking a step back if the game is, as we believe, two lead characters, playable pair? Because you've had a scenario where you've had three characters, and it's not so much about the characters as the ability to fast warp to three different locations on the map. You can triangulate better, where if it was to be two lead characters, same mechanic, you're only one place or the other place.
Mm.
Do you think that's a problem? And like, do you think it's possible there's another way to warp between the map where there might be another character or some other device?
I don't think it's a problem. I think it focuses your ability to do storytelling if you know where those people are. Also, I think you can get around it by saying, this mission is only for Lucia. Off she goes to this whatever area to do a thing. And then if you finish that mission, you're like, I want to swap back to, let's call him Jason.
Yes.
They could quite easily have teleported him somewhere else and go, now he's over here. And it is quite a long way away. And for some reason he drove there. Or, I mean, there's never a backstory in why the characters are where they are in GTA 5, right? You just say, now I'm going to switch to Trevor and he's up in the mountains. And you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'm up in the mountains. So I think they could move people around to give you that sense of, okay, you don't have to go all the way to the top of the map again because this character is up there. But it is an interesting thing to talk about as whether it feels like it's going backwards to go from 3 to 2. But I actually sort of prefer it. I think it gives you a much better sense of the characters and being able to follow them and their journey because you only have to concentrate on 2 people instead of 3. Will there be a magical third character option at some stage in the game? Like maybe that appears and then disappears for a certain bit of it and you just get to play as them for a sequence or 2. I can definitely see that happening and it being a cool surprise. So I think all the options are on the table for that, but I'm perfectly happy with there being 2 characters.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What I think remains to be seen, as you said, is what happens when those characters get further away and how quick that character switching can be. Obviously, like even in GTA 5, when you're on a mission that involves multiple characters, you can seamlessly switch between them because they are close together in that environment. But if you want to switch from somewhere who is a long way away, what happens then? I feel we're going to get some kind of zoom out mechanic like you did in 5, which is effectively hiding the loading, but it's just better, it's smarter, it does something a bit different than gives you the satellite view and jumps back down again. Because that, I think you can now make much quicker these days. You don't have to wait as long for it to load in all the stuff. And there's probably something really clever you can do with it. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure you can do something that gives you the sense that you're moving across the map without but then the world thing is quite good. Maybe you just keep it.
I thought it was quite a good solution because it doesn't take you out of the game. Even though it does take you out of the map, it doesn't ruin the immersion because it feels like it's all happening in real time. And it does create a sense of geography and scale because it's still looking at the map. That's why I got so briefly annoyed about going to a menu in the Ubisoft version, because that is, for me, game breaking. It's taking you out of the world. Where the Rockstar one felt pretty elegant. And if it's just a case of it being sped up, yeah, great. And it did, it actually did speed up when the game got subsequently released on different platforms. You could time how long it took to go up and down again, and it did improve as you went across platforms. So with PS5, maybe faster again. Sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked on how fast does the map go up and down, but you can see where I'm coming from.
And I think, I don't want to get too far down the Assassin's rabbit hole, but let's briefly touch on that, how they do their character journey throughout that game and what that could look like in GTA 6. Do you think these two characters are gonna, I do, act independently from each other, or will it be like Assassin's where it's essentially one story and you are just choosing which point of view to play it as? What I'm saying is that character is essentially always within your body, basically. You're like carrying around the second one and only bringing out their character model when you choose to.
I guess that's the version of it where it's just the physical representation or the avatar, rather than a meaningful change in the story. So like, I guess that's the version. Let's say you've played The Last of Us Part 2, where you get told the same story from two different perspectives, but you play them sequentially. So you play it from one perspective, then you play it from another. Is there another path where, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but like, is there another path where the game's at any one time playable from two different viewpoints? That's really crazy stuff, and maybe logistically the hardest thing in the world to make. But that maybe gets to the root of what the email question was asking. But in terms of the Ubisoft model we were talking about, what do you think?
No, it will be two independent characters within that world with their own things that they can go and do and stuff. I feel like it will very much be that, as it was in GTA 5.
And do you think if they're doing, let's say, the same mission or heist or whatever together, do you choose who drives the car effectively? I say drives the car, not literally the car, but who's like the main character of that, and the other one sits alongside. So it's just, again, it's like more cosmetic choice than a fundamental.
For missions where they're on it together, yes.
Yeah.
I think it will be similar to the way that you were planning heists when you could go in and go as loud or quiet. Will essentially be like, do you want to play this as Jason or Lucia? And that will slightly change how you approach those missions. Like, one of them will do it one way, the other one will do it the other way. And you probably get to choose which way you want to approach the mission by choosing, okay, I'm going to play as Jason and do it this way. That feels like a sensible evolution of that planning stage, where instead of you picking it on a board, you're basically going, oh, I know Lucia will always, go the hacking route or something. So let's enter the building quietly. Whereas we've got the other character who always goes in gun-ho. And maybe those attitudes and approaches change throughout the game, and they all have different ways of doing it. That could be fun. But no, I think there will be some missions where only one character is there at the time, and there will be other missions where they do it together. And I think then you'll just get the choice to choose who you play as, and the other one will just become an NPC.
Yeah, with you. So the feeling like on the missions where they're together, you think that mission will always sort of play out the same way. It's just you decide whose eyes you see it through.
Yeah, just like the heists, where like the end goal of those missions were always the same.
Yes.
It's just you got to it via slightly different paths.
Yes.
And I think that will be the same as depending on which character you are playing as. Things could go differently, but the end thing will always be the same. Like we will always get the diamond from the vault.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just how are we getting it?
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. No, that is interesting. I've got an idea I'll throw in, but relating to the next thing we're going to talk about, the co-op.
Yes, which is the second thing that we should cover is: do you think Rockstar want to introduce an entirely new way to play, push the boundaries and expectations once again? The idea that came to mind was split screen co-op story mode, which is an interesting take. Could it even be possible? I guess is the first question.
Yeah.
Like, and how would that work? I don't know.
It feels. I've got an idea that's probably even different to what this is. On a pure drop, let's say it's a pure drop in, drop out. So, the idea of the mission is always the same, and the start and the end are almost the same, but you can choose to live it with an additional human playing alongside you in split screen. I feel like maybe that's technically possible. It does happen in other games.
Yeah, I think it would only be online co-op. Like there's no world in which this is a couch co-op opportunity.
Like a local co-op.
No, I'm gonna say.
I mean, I agree. I don't think it's not that it couldn't.
No,
I just don't think they would do it. I don't think they would do it. So that's another layer of complication. I don't think they would do that, and I think more likely to be online. Like you say, a bit more like maybe it's not even Dark Souls Elden Ring is the right example, because that's more of a you look at my footprints and I leave messages.
Yeah, or sort of come and help me with this boss type situation.
Maybe maybe that. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe. I don't know what you do. Do you think they would put the entire game playable in what you'd be saying is like online co-op, so you can invite a friend in to play a mission or or just to completely play alongside you for a chunk of the free roaming?
It's possible. I don't know how likely it is. I think it's it's an interesting road to have gone down, and I'm sure it would have been discussed at some point. Going, if we've got these two characters, is there a possibility of online connectivity and them being able to both be human-controlled players? It would have to be in some kind of online environment, though. I feel like it fusing into the single player could happen, and would that be a good experience for like me to be on mission 6 and you to be on mission 2, and me say, actually, can you come and play this mission with me? It's really good. You'd then have to make the choice of if you wanted that mission spoiled for you before you got to it yourself, which is back to the spoiler conversation. Is it really a spoiler? I'm going to tell you about it anyway, so you might as well come and play it anyway alongside me. But
yeah,
it would raise a lot of barriers and things that would have to all align to make that a possibility. I think it's a cool idea, and I could see it being a really fun thing to do, to get to play GTA missions with a friend, but in essentially a single player environment, so it's just you two playing the missions together. Do I think it will happen for 6? I'm feeling less confident about it.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I feel like it's something that you could try to weave it through the entire experience, but then it's logistically so challenging in terms of that drop in, drop out way. And like, what does it really bring? Would it be easier, for example, if you really wanted to do co-op, to have a set of missions within the game that are co-op, that's just like almost like, you don't call it the co-op story, but there's something like a series of heists or a series of something you can do in co-op, and they're like pocketed within the world. That would probably be easier to do. A bit weird, but you could do. The thing I was thinking is, I think this is an interesting idea. I think it's the sort of idea that if you said out loud to a narrative designer or a game designer, they go, you're a maniac, and that could never happen. What I wondered is, what if, right, like when you entered, let's say, a heist or some sort of, structured set piece mission activity, if you can flip in real time between the characters, but the time you spend with that character, when you flip back, time still move forward. So you only ever get to see what that character sees for the time you're like in their body. So what I mean is, what it's become interesting is, let's say you finish a heist mission as Lucia, and you go off, and she says to, for example, Jason, inverted commas, wow, I'll meet you back at HQ. And he's like, yeah, I'll be with you soon. I've just got to, take this back to the car. And then you just get in the car, you drive off to the diner or whatever. What if you chose to still keep playing as Jason, and when he goes to the car, he meets an FBI informant or something, and you realize he's actually like a double agent or something. But you'd only see that if you've been choosing to play as him at that time. And then by the time you got to the end of the game, your version of reality in the game would be based entirely on the decisions you made at any one point in time. That's a really complicated idea. It's almost like Heavy Rain, but played out in real time, where you'd only get snatches of what the truth is. The cumulative effect, if it was even technically possible, would be to blur the boundaries between what is right and what is wrong, or who's got the most complete, like you, the player, at different points viewed it from both different perspectives.
Yeah, it's essentially this. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this kind of concept before. It's the idea of you basically having to play through that game twice to get the full understanding of the story.
To get the full picture, but you could play it in a way where you get snatches of both, but you get this constant FOMO of,
what are they doing? Who are they talking to?
Should I have maybe finished that mission as this character? And there's all sorts of permutations within that, because someone might be going, quick switch, what's Jason saying? What's Lucia doing? Like maybe they'd be having more gates and boundaries on it. So once you've committed to ending a mission to someone, you have to see it through. But it might create, it would create, like the characters have, a point in time where you can't see what the other one is doing. And then if you're creating a story that's about trust, for example, it would be a really interesting way to do it, because the storytelling would be you as a player had to choose how to see the game.
Yeah.
And you'd have to live with that sense of never getting the full picture. And it would say something, I think, about the way reality works. We don't really see through other people's eyes. We don't truly appreciate their perspective. And then all the players who played it would actually have different perspectives when it came to discussing, let's say there's a crux decision at the end of the game. Everyone would approach that point with a different lived experience.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. Technically, I think probably the impossible, maybe. Or really, really hard. And maybe to the point where you go, oh, let's just make a single player game. Like, it's too crazy to do that.
Yeah. I mean, effectively, that's the Last of Us model, but just running concurrently.
Yes, exactly that. So it's like, imagine The Last of Us, but at any time you could switch between the two timelines.
Yeah. Which I think is technically possible. I think it'd be a really cool thing to do. And even to the point where if you want to take it further, you finish the mission of Lucia, you go drive back to the safe house, you both split up. But then as Lucia, can you do a U-turn and then follow the NPC version of Jason?
Yeah, and I guess you could, because you've got the agency to do that. So you could potentially spy on
the people you're meant to be.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
And that creates a game that really is about trust and about two viewpoints. You never get to see things both ways, and the bond that joins is so complicated.
Let's just make this game.
Yeah. Somebody makes this game. I'd like this to be noted as the time we get our royalties.
Yeah.
But it sounds so complicated, but it is a bit of a smash of. It's like the consequence and decision tree and that sense of guilt that you get from Heavy Rain, that dual perspective thing you get from The Last of Us, but like brought together in real time. which is like, that's a fascinating bit of simultaneous storytelling. Probably very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to manage for the player. But
Definitely would be one of those things that push the boundaries and expectations.
yeah, it'll push the boundaries of video games, and as something that video games can uniquely do. I'm trying to think of as like anything in cinema done this. I know there's been multiple choice move, but that again feels like it's procedural, where you do it, it moves forward. It's not like, do you want to move to see a different perspective at this point? I don't feel like I've seen that so for example, Netflix Interactive or
No, you get it in like, this is going to be a very old reference. The film Go, I think Katie Holmes was in it.
yeah.
Where it's the same night played out from 3 different perspectives, and you
Yes.
basically see the same events 3 times.
Yes.
It has happened in cinema, and could be, and there's definitely a more modern reference that it's happened in, but I don't know what that is.
No, that's a good one. I mean, I guess I was going to say more modern. It's not modern at all. Like Pulp Fiction, to an extent, does a bit of this multiple. You see the same event from different perspectives, but it might only be a glimpse. And you suddenly go, oh, yeah, right. I sat through that scene for 20 minutes and now I've glimpsed it from this perspective from behind or something. That playing with perspective, whether it's done this way or not, it will be interesting for GTA 6 to play with perspective if it wants to examine the nature of trust and what is objective truth, which is, as we've said on the show before, probably the dominant theme of the age, where everyone hates each other and no one can agree anymore.
Yeah.
I think it would be a really, really, really fascinating and bold thing to question people's assertions. Forget, their personal politics or whatever, but just as an exercise in how people form opinions and perspectives to make them play it. I think that'd be really powerful and brilliant. Probably too hard and difficult for a game that also might have, here's the skateboarding mode and here's the wrestling. Like, it's just so ambitious. Maybe that's why it's taken 12 years. Who knows? But like, that's a fun thing I think they could do.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Toby. I hope that answers some of your questions. If you've got anything you want to add to this, please put your comments in the comment box below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock. You can sign up to the newsletter. There'll be a link in the description, which will be condensed versions of this episode and all the future episodes.
Yeah, that's gamesradar.com/newsletter and choose the GTA 6 o'clock sign up.
Alternatively, send us an email, gtavioclock@gmail.com. Please, as we say, comment below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we will be back next week for another episode of GTA 6 O'Clock.